Hi, everybody. Auntie Speaks here. We're going to have some fun. We are going to look at Anna Kasparian from the Young Turks going after Dennis Prager, the god that he is. No, I'm just kidding. She is fighting way outside of her weight class. Let's take a look what she critiqued Dennis Prager on.
As if stripping women of their bodily autonomy and rights to make decisions about their own bodies wasn't harsh enough, Dennis Prager has put out an op-ed in a publication known as the Daily Signal to say, women really need to control their emotions, and here's how I propose they do it. So he starts by talking about, listen, there are some differences between men and women. Okay, it's important for us to make sure we raise good boys so they don't turn into rapists and criminals, but we've been ignoring the women. We've been ignoring the women, and it's equally important. I mean, they're not more predisposed to be criminals and rapists, but they've got those emotions and we gotta control that. So he writes, as I've been telling parents for many years now, they need to teach their daughters to control their natures just as much as they teach their sons to do so. Specifically, girls have to learn to control their emotions.
You know, Anna, if you're going to go after someone like Dennis Prager, you might want to do your research. He spends 1 hour every single week trying to improve the relationships between men and women. And I always think they're hilarious because I mean, if you don't notice, I'm not like a touchy-feely type of gal. So I probably am more like on the male side of things than on the females. And I always just laugh at these women who call into a show and are completely clueless on what men are like and what men want and what's important to men. It's really, really hilarious. But if you know anything about Dennis Prager, you would know that he is not, and he says this every week, he is not a man fan and he is not a woman fan. He believes that both sexes have wonderful qualities and both sexes have bad qualities. And both sexes need to control certain impulses. And they're different for each sexes. Now, that seems rather smart, doesn't it? Don't we want to teach people to control themselves? And you don't believe that women have a problem with their emotions? Well, Anna, being you, I might think of this. Let's look at some Anna clips.
What do you want them to do with their kids when they have to go to work? What do you want them to do? What do you want them to do? I want them to answer that freaking question. Answer the question. Journalists, ask them the question. Ask them. Ask them. Get off the stage. You've got. But am I saying that I'm better than you? I guess I'm going a little further than you are. Yeah, I'm better than you, okay? Much better than you. You are garbage.
Yeah, those aren't all of them either. Those are just the ones that I could find. She's kind of famous for her, should we say, emotional outbursts.
Let me continue. He writes, just as the male sexual drive and violent impulses can overwhelm their conscience and their ability to think and act rationally, emotions can do the same thing in girls and women. Overwhelm their conscience and their ability to think and act rationally. I'm just getting started, okay? Little tippy tip of the iceberg. He continues. At least 2 generations of parents, especially among the well-educated, because of course they got to trash education because they love an ignorant population they can exploit, did not teach many of their daughters to control their emotions and think rationally. The result is that women are disproportionately active in doing damage to our society.
What exactly is controversial in what he's saying? If you haven't been around a bunch of girls, like especially if they're spending a lot of time together and you don't think that they're emotional, then I got a bridge to sell you. And number 2, the feminist movement has been telling boys for years and years and years that they need to control all of their bad impulses. So what are you saying exactly? Are you saying that women have no bad impulses? None? We're perfect? The female species is perfect. So Anna, I've heard you countless and countless and countless of times going after men and their male nature and the predators and oh my God, it's so terrible and all that stuff. You know, going after those violent men. You realize it's like a tiny, tiny sliver of the male population that's violent. And violence can go both ways. Violence can be used against people. It can also be used to protect people. So what you're basically saying is that men are evil and women are perfect. We can't try to improve women at all? Not at all? Okay.
It's the women, guys. It says American schools teach less and indoctrinate more than ever before. Big city public and most private schools, oh, he's going after private schools too, are damaging young Americans to an extent in ways no one imagined just a few years ago. Young children are prematurely sexualized. And who is facilitating all of this? In virtually every case, a woman. Can you provide the data for the sexualizing children part of it? Because there is none.
Are you kidding me? How do you think libs of TikTok became a thing? I mean, yeah, they started out with crazy SJWs, which are super funny, but they only really got off the ground when showing teachers talking about gender to 5-year-olds. Teachers talking about their relationships and their queerness and their whatever to second graders, first graders. But see, you're a leftist, so you don't think that that is sexualizing children. Well, you know, people, us on the right, we're kind of like, you know, I mean, we don't really care what you do as an adult, but, you know, a 5-year-old, I don't think we should confuse them at that time. That's what we mean. I could literally play you hours and hours and hours of data. So you can disagree that that is quote unquote sexualizing children, but you can't disagree that it's a topic up for debate. Or can you? Can you just close your eyes and say, okay, we're going to talk about sex. We're going to talk about homosexuality. We're going to talk about genders. We're going to tell little Timmy that he can be little Jenny. We're going to tell little Jenny that she can be Timmy. But that is not talking about sex. Well, okay, if you're talking about queerness, how do you explain that? How do you explain queerness? I hate that word. That was a bad word when I came from. Homosexual. How do you explain that? How do you explain that without talking about sex? And why should you be talking about sex to a first grader or a second grader? We just don't think those things should be in the classroom. And that's what we mean. What Dennis Prager is saying is there used to be an adult in the room saying, hey, you know, this shouldn't be talked about in front of little munchkins. So you can disagree that that is sexualizing children, but you cannot disagree that that is what is happening. And it is all controlled by women from top to bottom.
Mm-hmm. Well, so wait, his thinking is emotional women, because that's what emotions do to women, right? Whenever I get emotional, the first thing I think about is what? In his mind, is that what happens to you, Dennis Prager? When you get emotional, is the first thing that comes to mind, hey, I need to sexualize some children? Is that because you have this on your mind?
Wow. Okay. That's pretty disgusting, Anna. And you know that. So sure, let's just, go there. Okay. So what does Dennis Prager mean by women are emotional? Again, in today's world, it's like the obvious things are just, it's like we have to explain, like, the sky is blue. That's what we're doing now. We're explaining that the sky is blue. So what does Dennis Prager mean? That means that women, on average, and you could pretty much go to any psychologist or anybody who studies human nature, and they would tell you this. Women have the ability to feel for other people, much more than men do. So you might have noticed if you have a father or a brother or a son, they don't necessarily look at the person standing next to them and emotionally feel for that person. It doesn't mean they don't have feelings. They just don't like really like feel it. God, it's so hard to explain something like the sky is blue. It's really hard. So why do we say that it is a problem? So look, if your entire being is wrapped around emotions and making sure that everybody feels good and nobody feels hurt and nobody feels slighted, that can seriously damage society. And it can seriously damage society when we're talking about schools. Now, why? Okay, well, how we got to this place is microaggressions. Okay? Someone says something and you're offended. You're offended. Well, we used to have grown-ups in the room that said, well, sorry, sticks and stones may break your bones, but words will never hurt me. Remember that phrase? That old nursery rhyme phrase that everybody knew. No, we can't do that anymore. Why? Because women don't like to see other people hurt. They don't want to see someone's feelings get hurt. When you're out in the real world, your feelings get hurt all the time. So what do? They take these little kids and they wrap them in bubble wrap. Even more in today's world is because we have to deal with three genders and trigender and all this type of stuff. These teachers, they want to make sure that everybody feels comfortable. So you know what? I'm going to tell you everything about everything. I'm going to tell you about my theories on gender, and I'm going to tell you that you can be a boy or you can be a girl and you're just as valid, and you're never going to be hurt in the world and you're never going to suffer. And there might be a kid in my class who has, gay parents. So I better tell all the class about gay parents at age 5. Okay, we all know what's happening here. We all know it. But no, you have to go the sexual route and make Dennis Prager sound like a predator. Yeah, super cute.
I feel like guys do a lot of the murdering and the raping and the robbing and all of that. And so he gets out in front of that and he's like, yes, men often feel homicidal rage, but in the same way, women can't control their emotions. And then what is the result of that? He's really not specific. I guess the result of that is that you might be a librarian in a building where there's a book that sensitive conservatives don't like. So,
wow. Okay. So dude, let me educate you a little bit on what Dennis Prager is talking about. Okay. Dennis Prager talks a lot about micro and macro issues. Okay. So a micro issue is your personal relationship with someone else. A macro is what your relationship to society is, okay? So a great one is welfare. You, in your community, can care for the poor, and you can give to charity, and you can work at the soup kitchen, and you can do all of those lovely things. But then as a macro issue, welfare hurts the poor. It hurts the poor because it keeps them in poverty. And but you're a leftist, you don't believe that. So this is the exact same situation. So someone raping and murdering, that is a very, very, very small portion of society. When you have women controlling all of education, everywhere, that can be bad. And we've seen a lot of it. I'm going to probably do some videos on what is happening. There's several books that were written about the boy crisis because the educational system has become feminized. So we don't let boys play. We don't let boys get out their aggression, and they get frustrated and they don't do well in school. So it's not about one library book. And I would never, before the last 2 years, have ever thought myself would be a person like, maybe that should be in the library. But oh my God. Have you looked at some of the books in the library? I mean, like elementary school showing fellatio. I mean, like, I don't know if I can say that. Really bad stuff. Like elementary school showing like stuff that used to be behind a counter where you had to be 18 to buy it when I was a kid. So if you don't see the difference between those two things, then we can never come together. And we need to come together. We do, because you guys have stuff to say. And you have thoughts on things. We might not agree with each other, but we need to be able to discuss them. So if you don't know the arguments from the right at all, then how can you ever have a discussion with us? I know all of your arguments. I have listened to you. You do not listen to us, except for this one clip. Guys, yeah, Young Turks, you want to take on Dennis Prager? I'd do a little bit of research. He cares a lot about the relationship between men and women, and he tries to improve it. Men understanding how women feel and women understanding how men feel. So you know what? Before you knock a guy down, I do a little bit more research. So guys, like, comment, and subscribe.